Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Dance Magazine Higher Ed hosted conversation with Harlequin Floors. My name is Reanne Rodrigues, and I'm the editorial director at Dance Media. Our conversation today will be recorded and we'll be putting it up on dancemagazine.com, where you can watch it on demand at any time. There will also be an opportunity for you to ask questions in the last 10 to 15 minutes of this conversation. In today's discussion, we'll be talking with representatives from 4 out of numerous higher ed dance programs in the country, whose facilities are outfitted with industry-leading Harlequin floors. We'll be learning more about how Harlequin floors are the perfect choice for providing the strong and sustainable foundation college-level dance students need to build a sustainable dance career. I'm delighted to be joined by 4 very special guests. Nancy Lushington. She is Associate Professor of Dance at Marymount Manhattan College. Elizabeth McPherson, Professor and Head of Dance at Montclair State University. Melanie Person, Co-Director of the Ailey School and Director of the Ailey Fordham BFA program. And Susan Stowe, Chair of the Dance Department and a Professor at Point Park University. Welcome, Nancy, Elizabeth, Melanie, and Susan. We're so thrilled to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. So let's get right in. I want to start by talking about, you're all in such different institutions. Why did you choose Harlequin floors for your studios at your respective universities? Yes, Nancy.
Thank you. Really a pleasure to be here, Rianne. Thank you for hosting. Marymount has a long history of Harlequin floors. The floor in our largest studio, which is one of the largest studios in Manhattan, in the Great Hall, our original one was a Harlequin floor, and it lasted for over 20 years.
Wow,
So we were, anytime we built a new studio, it was the first thing we went to. We've had a lot of success with Harlequin floors.
amazing. Yes, Melanie.
For decades, we've been using the Harlequin floors at Ailey in our facility now in our beautiful 16 studios here. And I think the selection has to do really with the safety and support that dancers gain from working on this type of flooring. And so I think that we're all mindful of that as dance educators, all of us on this call. It's about
Mhm.
safety and support for the dancers who are
Yeah.
training in multiple techniques.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk more about safety and injury prevention and all of that. Would you like to contribute as well, Susan and Elizabeth? I saw your hand first, Susan, so.
Okay, well, just to echo your recent comment, our dancers' health and safety are paramount, and the demands on their bodies are many. So most of them have 3 technique classes per day plus rehearsals, and the repertoire that our students perform is the same repertoire that is found in a lot of companies. So for this reason, we provide our dancers with the best possible flooring, along with daily access to athletic trainers and physical therapists.
I don't know that there's too much different about Montclair, but I will just say that we have been using Harlequin floors for a really long time. I wasn't the original decision maker when the first floor was put in by Harlequin, but they have lasted and they've been pretty successful. And so that's why we've continued to use them. But I will say that I have not done personally a comparison between Harlequin floors and other floors to say that they're like the best in the industry, but I do know that they hold up well.
Amazing. Let's talk about, your careers you've all experienced working on and with various floors. Just as a segue to what you were talking about, Elizabeth, what sets Harlequin floors apart in terms of durability, maintenance, and the dancer experience? And you talked a little bit about this on the technique side of things, Susan. So just curious to know how the flooring has impacted your dancers' performance and enhanced their technique and artistry. Maybe let's start with you, Susan.
Sure. Well, I would say that consistency of the Harlequin product line has been amazing. We have sprung floors in all of our studios and seamless Harlequin Studio B laid over the top and glued down. So our performance venues are exactly the same way. So our dancers can transition from studio to stage knowing that the surface they will be dancing on will be consistent, clean, and durable. We've also had great success with longevity with these floors, and I think we've only had to replace a couple of them in the hardest used studios over the last almost 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you're seeing the same flooring as well for stage performances? Is that correct? Okay.
Studio B.
Nancy?
Well, you asked the question about our performance careers. I mean, I think some of us, myself included, started way back when those things didn't necessarily exist. I remember dancing on the stage at the Met, and there were divots in the wood floor that your point shoes would kind of get a little stuck on. So the transition, which did happen sort of at the time that I was dancing, and getting to the Joyce Theater where there was a beautiful floor, made a huge difference in what you could do and how it felt while you were dancing. So that was, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Let's go with you, Elizabeth.
Okay, I would say growing up, I know that one of the floors that I was on was sprung because there were two studios, and like you could see that there was a raise, that the floor was sprung, and the more advanced classes happened on that side and the less advanced classes happened on the other. But when I got to Juilliard, the one thing that I remember a professor pointing out was when you looked by the mirror, you could see the give in the floor when people were jumping. And I remember that professor pointing that out and that making a real impact on me and thinking about the safety of floors. And then I began to be able to feel it. Like when you're on a really hard floor, you can feel it when you're jumping. And so realizing the importance of that, because so much of what we do impacts our joints, right? The knee joint, the ankle joint, the hip joint, or whatever, and that pounding on a hard floor creates long-term damage. So the sprung floors are just, essential for longevity in a dance career. So
yeah, 100%. And also, at a given time when your students are performing, you might think that it works for a certain number of time, but then over time, I think that's where you really start to see injury and all of that happen. And that's something that you want to avoid from day one, from the beginning. I also wanted to go back to you, Susan, and talk a little bit about the thinking behind having the same flooring on the stage and the studio. I'm a little bit curious about that. Was that a decision that was made from the beginning? Was it different initially? And then did you plan to change it to align it as the same floor for both? Because I would imagine that when students are rehearsing on one floor and then switching to another, I think it would impact their technique and their artistry in a big way. But curious to know about your experience with that.
Well, they love it. The students love it. When we first made the decision to go with our new dance complex, we started doing a lot of design work, and we brought in samples of floors and different manufacturers, and even several different Harlequin products, and we just laid them down and had the dancers work on them. The faculty tried them out, and it was unanimous. They love the Studio B. And so we felt that rather than having them have to, figure it out like their traction on one surface and then change it up when they get to another, we just put down the same product across the board in all studios and all of our performance venues. And it's been very successful.
Amazing. Yeah. Yes, Melanie.
I was going to say similarly here at Ailey, because our two studios actually turn into the stage and the theater. So the dancers are working on this type of flooring while training and also performing. And there's a real advantage to that, as Susan has clearly articulated today. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about the experience. Sorry, go ahead, Susan.
I was just going to throw in something else that as a teacher, we're on in these spaces all day too. Yes, and it's really great to have a good surface and, a nice bit of padding under us on the sprung floors. Because when we're teaching, we're going through a lot of the same mechanics. So it's good to have that support from the floor.
Yes. And also when you're teaching for a long period of time, you're standing a lot, you're demonstrating a lot, you need a good floor as equally, I would say, as your dancers do. I know that all of you have such wonderful experiences working with dancers on Harlequin floors, every single day. What was it like? Say you have a new class coming in, or you are teaching a class for the first time in the space. What was it like watching your students dance on a Harlequin floor for the first time? Can you describe that experience or for them, or did you see something shift and change for you that you were excited about? Are you able to share that with us?
Go ahead.
I would say that nowadays, Nancy was talking about this, but at Montclair State, I think most of our students are coming in dancing on sprung floors already. Like it's not a new thing for them. That's probably not true across the board, but I think many studios now are also aware of that importance and K through 12 schools as well. And so I think that maybe 10, 20 years ago, that would have been different. Like coming to college, it would have been like, wow, this is a different experience. But I think now that it's commonly known that sprung floors are so important. So I don't think I'm seeing people experience it for the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
At Montclair anyway.
Agreed. It's the same at Marymount. You know, we get students who are coming from schools that have already embraced the idea that of how important it is to have a sprung floor.
Yeah.
And certainly the dancers at the level of the schools that we all teach at have had that kind of really high level training before they come in.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Susan.
So for me, and I think our faculty at Point Park University, we just love the fact that they are willing to take risks and they really are confident in their dancing. They're not worrying about, well, am I going to slip and fall? You know, do I need to hold back? Do I need to be careful? They're going for it, you know, and that is exhilarating. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you read my mind. My next question was actually about, the college dance experience is so much about exploring new and diverse movement modalities, different dance styles. And of course, students are being challenged in many different ways. And that fear of like not holding back is a really big thing as well. Um, how do you find that Harlequin floors provide sort of the necessary spring and the traction and the durability to support your students' training in this regard?
Well, I'll just say that I think sorry, Melanie.
Go ahead, please, Nancy.
The versatility of training at all of our institutions has shifted in the last 10 years, I would say, and that the versatility of the floor in multiple ways. You can go from La Duca heels to tap shoes to ballet slippers to bare feet to socks, and they function. The Harlequin floors, or many of them, function equally well with all of those diverse training styles.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, when we moved to this facility over 20 years ago, we tested out the floors, and they were Harlequin floors with, some had bare feet, trying out movements. Others had heels, ballet slippers. So, we knew right away that this flooring would support the needs of the dancers, right? Not only the students, but the company members as well.
Yeah.
And the dancers in all of our institutions are working in so many different modalities.
Yes, yes.
I was just going to say that like I grew up dancing, and probably the other people on this phone call did, on wood floors with rosin, right?
Yeah.
Then if you had to go onto a floor with rosin and bare feet, oh my goodness, split central. Like it was, you got such bad splints. So having that marley covering that makes the versatility, which I'm sure all of us have it in all of the studios, that's very standard now, but that's really, it's changed some of the worst parts of dancing in bare feet, particularly because those splits were like, they were horrible. Yeah.
Yes, yes, 100%. I remember those days myself. We had like the whole floor covered with rosin, wooden floor, because of the ballet point shoes that were really slippery initially, and then sort of converting into like a modern dance form was just painful.
Or I also remember having the small folded up paper towel next to myself at the bar with a little water on it to get some traction on a wood floor.
Yeah.
That
So I
wasn't
do
allowed to
think
use rosin.
I do think it's really wonderful to have a floor that gives you that support to sort of shift. Because I think, students are taking different classes, and at one moment they're like switching from ballet, the next it's contemporary, and then even like choreography. We were talking a little while ago about not having this fear of like slipping and falling. But I think choreography wise, it's also essential that you don't have the fear of like holding back certain elements of the choreography. You want to be able to execute as if you were doing it on stage, or, you don't want to sort of have to hold back on certain elements of that as well. I think it's really important for students to enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that our students, our ballet students, they like the Studio B because it has a little bit of padding underneath it, and so it gives them a little better traction in the point shoe. But they're still able to do contemporary ballet choreography in there too, and with the sliding around and stuff. So it works also for our modern and our jazz concentrations. So it's really been versatile for all techniques.
Amazing, amazing.
I was just going to throw in, and it's not just sliding on your feet, like it's sliding on knees and sides, and that there's so much floor work that happens, and the Marley really facilitates that.
Yeah, and also like turns, across the floor combinations, things like that, I think are also sort of where some reservations happen sometimes, especially when you're moving across the space in different ways, and it's not just sort of one direction and you're switching directions a lot. I think that also, to your point, Elizabeth, is key to having a good floor. Do your students, I'm curious to know, I know we talked a little bit about the floors that you have in your studio, but do you use any other Harlequin products? I'm thinking things like ballet bars, portable mats, portable turning boards. What has been your experience in your studios with those products?
Well, we use the cleaning products to clean the floors, exclusively. But everything else we have, like our ballet bars were made locally. Most of everything else was done in-house. But we do have the sprung floors and the Studio B covering, and we use the cleaning products.
Okay.
We also use the cleaning products. We did have an issue a number of years ago with someone in our maintenance facility using the incorrect cleaning products, and that was a real problem.
Okay.
So we have totally embraced making sure that they understand how to clean a Harlequin floor, because it is very important and can change the surface.
Yeah. I want to come back to this point about cleaning and maintenance, floor maintenance. I wanted to ask real quick if Melanie or Elizabeth, you had anything to share?
I don't think so. Just that it is important to keep the floors clean. Obviously, just what we were talking about when you're sliding across the floor and your whole body and everything else. I mean, you don't want to be picking up lint and all the other stuff that, keep that. So we get our floors cleaned every morning before the classes start. So, and they're using the recommended cleaning products as well.
Yeah, same here. We're using the correct products that keep the floors in good condition for the dancers.
Okay, amazing. I also do want to share, if any of you on this call are looking for ballet bars, portable mats, turning boards, you can find it all on Harlequin's website. I'll be sharing some information later on of where you can go and search for those. So just as an FYI. But coming back real quick to cleaning and maintenance of your Harlequin floor, I know that's very important because I've been reading, and from my own experience dancing in studios, I know that certain things like cleaning the floor is important, but let's talk about what the kinds of products are that you use. And also, I know certain things like the sunlight shining too much on a floor or something can cause damage. Have you sort of seen, or how do you avoid those types of damages to your flooring? How do you keep it sort of working well? And a lot of you have had the Harlequin floor for so many years, and that's a testament to how wonderful the floors are, but also that comes from really maintaining the floors really well. So what's your secret? What do you do?
I'm going to say, because I actually am not in charge of any of the cleaning part, we just call the people and they know what to do. But we do have really big windows that bring in a lot of sunlight, particularly in one of our studios, like, floor to ceiling, very tall windows, but they have shades on them. They have shading shades, and then they have blackout shades. And so when it's really, really sunny, we use those so that the floor doesn't get too much sun, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just also for the people in the room, but it seems to work pretty well. in terms of protecting the floor and making sure that the people in the room are comfortable with the level of sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree. I don't know personally what the products are, and but our expert facilities manager makes sure that now that we only use the Harlequin products for the floors, having had a real problem in the past. We fortunately in our most of our studios don't have light issues. We do have windows, but it's not like direct light that's going to hit the floors. And I understand that that can, especially the heat from that, can cause a lot of damage to the floors. But I also want to say that I remember the days when the Marley was rolled out and you had to have the tape to hold it up, and now the seamless ones, it's like a miracle. It's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nancy, do you remember what damages were there without using the Harlequin products? Like,
So they were used with one of those buffers. They
I
buffed the
see.
floor and they
Okay.
took off some of the surface coating. And then we had spots in the floor, the original floor, that were slick. So you would be
Okay.
dancing and you would come to a spot and it would be incredibly
Oh,
slick all of a
okay.
sudden.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very dramatic and terrible.
So note to self, use the Harlequin cleaning products.
Yes, and note to your crew, they should be in contact with Harlequin about how to maintain the floors because it is very
Okay.
specific, and
Yeah.
and I don't believe that a buffer was the right thing to be using either. It was
Mhm.
an outsourced cleaning company that came in to do a mega clean on the Great Hall floor, and they didn't understand.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Reanne, here we have a director of our facility at Ailey, and we also have a director of our studio operations. So those are the individuals who make sure that the floors are well taken care of, cleaned properly. And also we may have issues with light here placed with the placement of our building, and we have the shades that come up and down. So there's a constant monitoring of the condition of the floors as well as the rest of the studio shades, everything, regarding the studio operations.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, it's so important to take care of the flooring, the Harlequin flooring as much as it is, to dance on it and enjoy it. I think that durability also comes from really good maintenance. Going back to your point on slick, we talked about different dance styles and, ease, like basically I want to talk a little bit about ease of movement. How has that experience been on a Harlequin floor? Because um, as you were mentioning, Nancy, that's probably due to inadequate care and treatment. But sometimes, at least in my own experience as a dancer, I would find certain spots on flooring, being slick for whatever reason than others. In your experience working on these floors, when again, we talked a little bit about students dancing in socks or tap shoes and then doing point work, especially when you dance in socks, I feel like that brings a whole level of challenge. Um, at least personally for me as well, like dancing in socks felt way more slippery for some reason for me. So how, especially when doing things like contemporary floor work or challenging repertoire bare feet, how do these Harlequin floors allow for that ease of movement? Elizabeth.
I mean, they are versatile because in socks you can slide, but it's not like you're sliding and going to fall. I mean, they have like just kind of the right amount of traction, if that makes sense. I mean, occasionally if you've had somebody in there, I don't know, who is really sweaty, lying on the floor in one spot or something, that spot might get a little slippy or more slippery. But once the floor is clean the next day, it's fine. But I think they do offer they are durable. That bare feet, socks, ballet slippers, point shoes. It's pretty, I mean, I think
Versatile.
students
Yeah.
feel supported and doing what they need to do, right?
Mhm.
And not like they're going to fall or slip or something like that, or that it's too sticky. I mean, occasionally you'll see a student if they're doing a lot of turns and it's a piece that's in bare feet, they'll put a sock over part of their foot, so that they have a little less traction than a bare foot would have. But students kind of work with that. I think they're so used to Marley flooring at this point that they have figured it out through their long years of training.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do have one studio that is still a wood or that is now a wood floor, particularly for our embodied Africanist aesthetics courses. They really want a wood floor. They want to feel the earth for the West African dance and for the hip hop class in sneakers, because sometimes that's an issue. But
Yes.
the jazz class that was in there in the LaDucas, it didn't work. Way too slick. We had to move the class to a studio that had a Marley floor. I mean, that had a Harlequin, that surface.
Interesting.
Yes, we also have one studio that is a wooden floor, but we also can lay Marley over it as needed.
Okay, great. Susan, I think you're on mute, so I can't hear you.
So sorry.
Yes.
I was going to say that we also have a huge theater program in our Conservatory of Performing Arts, and we have Harlequin products that we use on the stage, even when they're moving big pieces of scenery. There's big dance numbers in the musicals. So the Harlequin stands up really well to the weight of the scenery and all of that, in addition to the dancing.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I want to talk about injury. This is a big one. I mean, when it comes to flooring especially. And for college dancers, it's a time when they're really challenging themselves. They're pushing their boundaries. But we talked how they feel most confident when they can leap higher or dig deeper or take risks when they're assured that they can land safely and protect themselves. So from your experience, how do Harlequin floors provide this strong and supportive and stable foundation that your students need so that they feel comfortable and secure and, are not at risks of injury? We want to prevent that at all costs.
I mean, they have give, like what I was talking about the first time that somebody pointed that out to me. If you look at where the wall hits the floor, you can see when people are jumping that it has give, and that's how you know the floor is sprung and that it's going to give that cushion so that you're not just pounding your joints,
Yes.
as you jump. Sorry. Emphasize my point. Yeah, and yeah. And so the sprung floor does that.
Yep.
It's like the shock absorption, right? So we want to know that when we're landing, there's a surface in which we can, rebound, recover, and all of that. And so, as Elizabeth is saying, you can see that on a sprung floor. And for those of us, and I think everyone here has danced on one that hasn't been sprung, we know there's a distinct difference.
Yeah.
You can feel it over time. I mean, fewer shin splints, and the lack of the traction of the floors prevents other injuries, other kinds of injuries, twisting in the knee, all sorts of sprains. So looking back on when we were all dancing, I think there were probably quite a few more of those injuries. And training has changed as well too, but I think a lot of that has been prevented by the innovations in floors.
Yeah. Are you finding your students are sort of reporting less injuries than before? I mean, let's talk about how much that's shifted in recent years. Is it sort of been the same throughout? I'm curious to know what you're
Well, most of
experiencing.
us have had Harlequin floors for years, so
Yeah, for like 20 years.
exactly. So I think I'm looking back at the time when we had studios that didn't necessarily have sprung floors or a Marley surface, that there were quite a few more injuries.
I think, Reanne, what Susan pointed out early on in the conversation was there's such a priority on health and safety for dancers. That includes the flooring they're dancing on and many other conditions as well. So it's really like a high priority now, more than ever before, I would say.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Like having PT on site, which I think all of us do, which is so incredibly important. I didn't have that in my college training, so we had to go off site to get PT. So having PT right there and having courses like somatics and self-care and courses that are really helping students learn how to take care of their bodies and their adult bodies, because they're coming to us as young adults. And a kid's body is quite different. They can hop into the splits or whatever, on a moment's notice, and it's not damaging. But as you get to be an adult, you have to do more pre-technique warm up to be really prepared to go right into your classes.
Yeah.
And I think it's the flooring, the facilities, and also the training that they're receiving. cross-training. We emphasize cross-training at Point Park. When freshmen come in, they each have a personal assessment with an athletic trainer, and they're told where their areas of weakness are and what they can do to improve. And then there's a check-in with their instructors as they move through the program so that they're ensured that they're making good progress and avoiding injuries.
I like that. I like the cross-training element that you have as well. And when it comes to like rehearsing, you know, of course, I guess the frequency of students using the floor also gets a little bit more intense. Do you ever find that that is a problem, you know, at all, like the intensity or the number of hours, or does that have no impact just by using a floor? A good floor.
Well, of course it has an impact. I mean, the number of hours, if you increase it exponentially, there's the likelihood of more injury just from the increased work and depending on the kind of work. I mean, we did a Paul Taylor piece a couple of years ago, and the students, it's interesting that, you know, we're talking about the training, but also the kind of repertoire that the students perform these days. A lot of contemporary work doesn't have the kind of jumping that a Paul Taylor piece has, and our students really experienced a big difference in the way their bodies felt. And I think, Susan, you're saying the cross-training, the kind of cross-training that they might do to prepare for that kind of piece would have been very helpful for some of these dancers. But they did notice a huge difference in the way their legs felt with that kind of jumping.
Oh,
and without a sprung floor, they would never have been able to do it.
100%.
Well, and I would echo that, you know, coming out of COVID, our dancers didn't jump for 2 years, you know, so they really needed that extra little bit of buoyancy to remember how to jump and how to land. That was a pretty tough time for all of our dancers.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up because that is a point, especially when you're not training for very long, as opposed to, you know, training far too much. When you're not training for very long as well, that's a big factor in injury prevention.
Or dancing in your bedroom or your kitchen or wherever.
Yeah, just a different experience. Okay,
and certainly no sprung floors at home.
No.
I have one sort of big overarching question, and then I also want to open it up to our attendees on today's call as well to ask some questions. Obviously, you know, from our conversation, we've established that having a good floor system like Harlequin is a big investment in the well-being of your students, your college dancers. And I'd love for each of you to maybe talk or share a little bit of your experience. How has the Harlequin flooring prepared your students, sort of been their springboard? How do you see them sort of having this successful dance career, having been at your respective universities, dancing on a Harlequin floor? Can you speak a little bit about how that is about to launch them into wonderful careers in the future?
Well, I would just like to say that I think we want to provide the best possible conditions for a dancer to train in. And so part of that is the flooring to support all the many, you know, dance techniques, modalities that they will train in. Also, to provide them with the correct flooring to perform on. The flooring is one aspect, but there's so much more that contributes to the well-being and success of any of our students within our schools.
It provides them a model of what they should expect as they move into the professional field in terms of what they should ask for if it's not there. Does that make sense? Or choosing where they're going to perform. If they're showing their choreography, it might be choosing where they're going to rehearse or where they're going to perform based on whether that space has a sprung floor. So hopefully they're learning in our programs of what are the industry expectations that will support safety and longevity in a dance career.
That's an interesting viewpoint, yes.
That's very true, Beth. I think also as Melanie was talking about the wide variety, and I know it's Susan's program too, the wide variety of areas that our dancers are going into. I mean, it's not this narrow field anymore. And even though they're training, maybe they're ballet concentration or jazz concentration, all of our institutions are working hard to create a versatility within our dancers that conceivably they could cross these barriers. And dancers these days don't train, in one form only. And I think that that's a good thing, that it gives our students that many more opportunities when they get out into the field. And I totally agree that having standards about the kind of floors that they dance on and what they ask for, if they're in a position to say, I take this job because I'm going to be safe and I'm going to have a longer career, that's just marvelous. Yeah.
Susan, would you like to share as well?
Well, they all put it, my colleagues here put it so beautifully. I would just say I agree with all of them. And I think that, the versatility of the training, again, the facilities, they're going to help the dancers to succeed as they're training and then propel them into the professional world. I know that we have graduates that are dancing in concert dance companies, are on Broadway, they're doing cruise ships, they're with Cirque du Soleil. It's an endless list of where they are and what they're doing. And I think that is in part because of the training that they received and the care they were given.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to throw one thing out there, just as it just kind of occurred to me now, but I do think that the Marley floor that allows for fusions of forms, because so many different kinds of dance can be done on them, I think that probably has allowed some or supported some of the fusions that you see now. Right. The contemporary dance is such a fusion of all different kinds of dance often. And I think that having Marley floors and sprung floors or whatever has facilitated that fusion of form. So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yes. That's a good point. I want to maybe open up now for some of our questions. So we'll open up this session now for all of you, our attendees, to ask questions. We have a few minutes, so we'll try our best to get to as many as we can in the limited time we have. If you have a question for Elizabeth, Nancy, Susan, or Melanie, you can enter it into the chat box. I believe I'm able to view it. So while I wait for those questions, I'm sure they'll take a few minutes to come in. I was curious about what you said earlier, Susan, about the way the Harlequin floors hold up to shifts in with the scenery and background and all of that shifting. That's something that I thought was really unique because it supports not just performances on stage, but also props and other things, especially when you have a really large full-length, large-scale production. Can you talk about how many years you've had that experience with the flooring and just about how you're able to sort of move between scenes? And I'm just curious to know a lot more about how that has been for you.
Sure. So next year will be my 30th year at Point Park University.
Oh, congratulations.
It went by like that. I started in 1995, and when I started at Point Park, we did not have Harlequin floors, and we did not have all these wonderful things. I made it my mission as I rose into the chair position that we needed to have better facilities. That it was hugely important for our dancers, for our faculty. We were seeking the National Schools of Dance accreditation. So we were then in dire straits as far as meeting their standards for facilities. So we did a big fundraising project, and we identified a space to build our dance complex building, which has 8 studios and a theater. We decided to, like I said earlier, check out these different types of floors. And we did an extensive sort of just trying and kind of whittling away until we had picked the ones that we really liked the best. And that turned out to be the Harlequin, like I said, Studio B. And so that's what went into the dance complex, and then onto the stages. The theater program loves them too. and we have had great success moving the scenery. And you know, we do musicals like Newsies, and we just did Steel Pier, and
Wow.
anything goes. You know, we do all these big musicals, and they need the surface. They need to be able to dance on that floor, but they also need to be able to move the scenery across it. So it's been very successful, and we're actually about to build 4 more studios to accommodate
Wow.
enrollment. And those will all have Harlequin floors as well.
Yeah, amazing. Actually, I think we're, sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Can I hop in for one thing? I would say we're a much smaller program. We're much more intimate, but I was just going to say that it is very lucky. I feel lucky, like for all of us, that we have support from our administrations to make sure that we're providing the kinds of facilities that dancers need to train. So I would say that that's, yeah, makes me feel lucky to be part of this group where we're all getting that kind of support from our administrations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have one question, and then from one of our attendees, and then I have another question that popped on off my own. The question here is, if your school were to be building a new dance space or renovating an existing dance space, how would you go about choosing the best subfloor and vinyl? Do you work with consultants or specialists?
Well, I think
We had
Susan answered that. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a consultant, and we worked directly with Harlequin to get those samples. They were like 6 by 8 foot samples, and we just laid them out and had everybody try them. So it was a combination of things. And you know, our faculty are all professional dancers, former professional dancers, and so their input was very valuable as far as what was the best product.
Mm-hmm.
We recently had a new studio floor put in one of our studios, and similarly, we got samples from Harlequin. I also think I should mention when we decided to go with them, their technicians were above and beyond. I mean, the speed and the accuracy. I mean, everything about the experience was better than we had another company put in another floor, and it was not the same experience. So I think that we would probably go with Harlequin, depending on which floor we needed. Yeah, in the future.
Thank you. I don't see another question in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and ask my question. Can you all speak? I know you from the perspective of your particular universities, you offer different types of programs, and different types of dance programs. Can you talk a little bit more in depth about, you know, how versatile the Harlequin Floors has been for the dance programs you offer? And please talk a little bit about the dance programs you offer and how that's sort of been a bit more instrumental. I think we touched on this, you know, broadly, but I just want a little bit more specifics.
I think that's funny that you say that, because looking at the 4 programs that we're talking about, there's a lot of similarities between our programs. I don't know if you all, the rest of the panel would agree with me, but we are, I think, competing for some of the same students. I know from the students who auditioned for us, they will mention these other programs as in their top, you know, 5 schools or that they're interested in being at. And one of the reasons is exactly what you're talking about: the versatility of the training, the diversity of the programs in terms of the kinds of dancers that we're trying to produce, that it's not, you know, just one way, that there's multiple ways of looking at dance. Yeah.
And focus on health and wellness, right? Focus on the physical safety of the dancers and also on their mental health, and supporting the dancers as people, and definitely making sure that you have sprung floors as part of that, just supporting them as people. It's not just dancing bodies in the room that you're trying to get through one big performance. It's trying to prepare people for a long career.
Yeah. Yes.
And diverse.
Yes.
And also, Reanne, you know, we don't necessarily know if everyone will be a performer at the
Yeah.
end of training with our programs and within our institutions, but we hope that what they've received from us will allow them to go out and do whatever they do in the world, which could be dance administration, could be teaching, could be choreography, or it could be in other areas of interest that they may have and that they've acquired while being at our institutions.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Melanie. I have one question actually that came into the chat. Thanks so much for answering this one. It's from Christina, who says, I am the head judge and faculty coordinator for a national dance competition. How would you encourage dancers entering the college setting to seek schools providing top-level safety as far as flooring in combination with the high-level training they seek across a variety of genres or modalities?
I would say if they're NASD certified, you're going to know that they're providing adequate facilities because you can't get certified through NASD, the National Association of Schools of Dance. And you can look on their website and you can see what schools are certified. So that's one thing. And there are definitely some schools that have great studios, great floors who are not on that list. But if you are on that list, it does mean that you're providing adequate facilities for the dancers. And then when you go to the school, you can feel like you can visit this, you can go into the studios and you can jump and you can tell if the floors are have give to them.
Yeah, to Elizabeth's point, I would definitely recommend that you go and see for yourself. See the facilities, experience the space, dance in there, talk to the faculty. I'm sure all of our institutions have a program where, open house kind of thing, where students could come and visit and learn about the programs, talk with faculty. I think that's really important. You have to do your homework before you would make a decision that big.
Yeah, there are those group auditions you can do, and those are wonderful because you can audition for probably all of our schools in one place. And I think that that's helpful in terms of geography, not having to go to all these different places. But if you can go to the schools, I think you get such a better sense of the environment. You get to talk to students. You get just a feel for what the climate of the school is, which would include the safety of the studios. But
yeah, I would also say we have a summer intensive program, International Summer Dance, and that's a great opportunity for younger students to check out Point Park University, and see if they like it. And they will experience the studios and the space, and they'll get a real feel for what the day in a life of a Point Park student is like.
We also hold a 2-day summer intensive for high school students, and I agree. That's a great way to be in the studios and experience what it's like to take college dance courses.
And Reanne, is really about what's the right fit for the individual, right?
Yes.
What city is the school in? What's the location? What are they going to have exposure to within that city and also within the environment of the institution? So visiting is, I think, key. And speaking to the faculty, as Susan has suggested, and also speaking to the students, as Liz and Nancy have recommended.
I see
always in the student body. I think that's also important. Some people want a bigger school. Some people want a smaller school. Some people want a bigger dance department. Some people want a smaller dance department. And some of that's, I think that's important to look at too, in terms of making a list of your priorities and seeing how each school stacks up against that.
Yeah. I just had one more question come in. It's from Anne, who asks, do you have experience with the Harlequin flooring in conjunction with stages that can be taken down and put back up?
Yeah, we don't. I think those are those floors that you sort of roll up and then you can put them down. I know that some companies travel with floors like that, but we don't have experience with that. I don't.
Anyone else? No.
I would say as a professional dancer, I had experiences with that, performing, but all of our floors are glued down. We don't take them up unless we're replacing them, but they're all glued down. We do use Marley on one of our stages that we roll out and tape down because it's a multi-purpose stage. It's a proscenium house, and we do theater in there. We do dance. We do producing shows that are traveling through Pittsburgh. And so we present a lot of things there. So that floor has to be a little bit more versatile so we can take it up, put it down. And then if we're not using it, we store it and then we pull it out again when we need it.
We also have on our main stage, we have a floor that rolls out because very often for the theater productions, they're going to paint the floor or do something like that. So yeah, we need to be able to get it out of the way.
Melanie, does the Ailey company travel with the flooring as well? not the school, the main company?
They travel with all the things that are needed for the professional company to be in different spaces, different theaters, and that is the same with the second company.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, I've learned so much. I haven't seen any other questions crop up. I'll just give it another 30 seconds or so. But I just want to say this has been really wonderful. I've gotten to know so much about flooring, Harlequin flooring, ease, durability, maintenance. I mean, we've covered so much in this conversation about flooring. I don't see any more questions coming through, so I think we can close our session. I want to thank you, Nancy, Elizabeth, Melanie, and Susan. Thanks so much for sharing your valuable knowledge, your experience with Harlequin flooring, and how it has been with your dancers and in your everyday work as an educator. I think it's been really insightful to learn more about your real life experience with the floors and to know how much it's serving you and your dancers. So thank you so much. I want to share with everybody who's on this call, if you'd like more information on Harlequin floors, you can visit their website. It's us.harlequinfloors.com/get-in-touch. And if that seems a little bit too hard and it's a little bit of a mouthful for me to say, you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Harlequin Floors USA as well. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined us today on our session. And thank you all again, once again, for having this wonderful discussion with me. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Reanne.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Nice to see you all.
See everybody. Yeah.
See you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.